I call this meeting of Township High School District 211 Board of Education to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Bradley?
Here.
Ms. Cavill? Mr. Kramer?
Here.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Here.
Mr. McGowan?
Here.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Here.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Here. Would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Thank you. Our first order of business is the closed session, and the recommended action is that the board enter closed session to discuss minutes of meetings lawfully closed under the Open Meetings Act, appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, matter pertaining to an individual student, and collective negotiation matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Any discussion?
Second.
Oh, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Bradley?
Here.
Mr. Kramer?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye. The recommended action is that the Board of Education return to open session.
So moved.
Second.
May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Bradley?
Here.
Mr. Kramer?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye. And would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? The next item on the agenda is recognitions, and I'll turn that over to Dr. Small.
Thank you. It is my pleasure to introduce everyone to three excellent educators tonight. If they would please come forward when I introduce their name, stand by the podium, and then after we're done introducing you, can come up to President Klimkowitz and she will give you a certificate. First is Nick Hostert. Nick, will you please come forward? Nick is a Palatine High School art teacher and is the 2021 Illinois Art Education Association Distinguished Member Awardee. Annually, the organization recognizes the top art, design, and media educators for their excellence and service to the field. This award committee found Nick's performance and service to be exemplary. In both his art and teaching practices, Nick explores the intersections of visual art and critical art theory. His expertise lies in using contemporary artists and works to drive his curriculum. He has taught visual and media arts for more than 15 years at Palatine High School, has presented nationally about his work, and works regularly to consult with art organizations and other schools in other districts to elevate the profession. Congratulations, Nick, on a well-deserved award. Aaron Garrity Duffy. James B. Conant art teacher Aaron Garrity Duffy has been named the 2021 Illinois Art Education Association Administrator of the Year. This honor recognizes her for overall excellence and service to the field. Aaron, who developed her passion for art as a student in District 211, was nominated by a colleague. The award committee has found her professional performance, service, and leadership to be exemplary in every regard. Erin has taught for a total of 17 years and says the most important thing is that she hopes to teach her students is the process of making and developing an idea so that they realize that while they might not always like the end result, the effort is worth something along the way. The Illinois Art Association is the premier professional development provider for art, design, and media educators in Illinois, serving thousands of teachers statewide. Congratulations, Aaron, and thank you for not only what you do for Conant High School, but also for our district. Michael Karash. Michael Karash, a William Fremd High School teacher, has been named the Project Lead the Way National Engineering Teacher of the Year. Earlier this year, he was named to the 2021-2022 Project Lead the Way Outstanding Engineering Teacher, which put him in contention for winning this national award. Mike is a 1999 graduate of William Fremd High School and has been in the district for 15 years and has been recognized by the board last year for earning the 2019-2020 Project Lead the Way Outstanding Engineer Teacher Award. He earned this award based on his commitment to providing our students with meaningful learning experiences through our Project Lead the Way program. His strong record of inspiring and empowering lessons in students is well documented within our district, and within our school, within our district, and within the area. Mike, congratulations. We join you with Fremd High School in celebrating you and all that you do for our students. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's amazing. Thank you so much to our outstanding teachers. Thank you to all of our teachers. And thank you for all that you do for the students and support to one another. So I thank you. If you would, let's see, what else do we have?
That's it for
We've got
recognitions.
everybody. All right, if you would like to leave because you probably have classwork to prepare for tomorrow, you are more than welcome to do so. And then we will go on to our, what am I missing here? We'll go on to our public comments. So if you'd like to leave, you're more than welcome to. Okay, thank you. We will have two public comment sessions. The first one is general, and the second one will be specifically on the budget. So I have two separate sheets here. I have 9 people who had signed up to speak, so it appears that we can have 5 minutes for each of our presenters here. Couple of items here. We welcome you and are pleased to listen to your comments this evening. It's important that you know this is a public board meeting and not a dialogue. So the board members will not be responding to your comments or answering your questions at this time. As a reminder, the board meeting is being taped and live streamed. We ask that you value the procedures and the decorum of our meeting and be respectful to those at the podium so they may be heard. When I call your name, please come forward to the podium and state your name for the record, though not required. You may state if you are a resident of the district. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes. You will receive a notification when you have 1 minute remaining. Any individual's unused time or place in the order may not be deferred to another individual. So if you wish a response from the superintendent, please leave your name and a number with Mr. Tenopor, and a response will come back to you then. Okay, I'm going to call the first name, and then I will also call a second name so you can be prepared. The first name I have is John Hauger, and the second person would be Lucinda Sanders. So, Mr. Hauger.
Thank you. Hello, my name is John Hauger, and I have 2 kids in D211. As it's been made abundantly clear that there is no dialogue to be had here, I'm going to use my time allotted to educate everyone here and watching at home about the ridiculousness going on in Springfield and what can be done. We are aware that this school board feels it's defenseless to act against Fuhrer Pritzker's mask mandates as he laid them down early August, coming right out before the start of school, much like an abusive boyfriend saying that he wishes he didn't have to punish us. But since we've acted out of line, we're going to have to be beaten again. The problem is that he does not have this authority, and that is the reason why House Bill 4135 has been introduced. House Bill 4135 would give the ISBE the power to revoke school recognition from school districts that don't comply like good little boys and girls. And they know a fight is coming. This is why the unconstitutional House Bill 4151 has just been filed. 4151 would establish criminality for protesting anywhere near any school in Illinois. Think about that. They want to make it a Class A punishable misdemeanor for displaying signs, engaging in oral protest, education, or passing leaflets and bills within 100 yards of any school. There is hope, however. House Bill 4149, also called the Parental Medical Choice Act, if enacted, would provide that no state or local entity, institution, or individual could require a minor to undergo any health care service or precaution, even as a condition for enrollment or an in-person attendance. This is the way. Everyone must put full support behind 4149 because it provides choice, freedom of choice for our children, and whatever that looks for each family to decide on their own. Please understand, these mandates are coming from a man who has voted himself a record-shattering 21 extensions to his emergency power, which is very reminiscent of China's Xi Jinping and Russia's Vladimir Putin. And the comical part is that his family faces no consequences of the rules he is even setting in place. His daughter attends University of Miami, and we all know that as soon as his mandates were ramping up last March, his wife took off to their coincidentally newly purchased equestrian estate in Wellington, Florida. Go figure, a state that has all but done away with unnecessary health mandates. Also note that since 2016, he has maintained venture capital investments in not one, but two coronavirus testing supply and service companies. Is it any wonder that literally the richest politician in America wants you, the educators, to get tested weekly? So in conclusion, in the words of Patriot Ian Smith of Belmar, New Jersey, it's time to make politicians afraid again. Thank you.
Thank you. Lucinda Sanders, and followed by Maria Gallo.
Can you hear me with my mask on? Okay. So Lucinda Sanders, I have lived here. I am a resident of the district. I've lived here in Palatine for about 20 years. I've been a teacher for about 30 years. Right now I teach in Algonquin up the road. My students are English learners, and because I speak Spanish, I'm able to talk a lot with the parents. They tell me that their biggest hope is that their children will become a valuable part of their community. They also tell me their two biggest fears. One is the health, of course, of their children. They treasure them, and they want to know that when their children come home from school, they're just as healthy as they were that morning. The other huge fear is that their children won't be able to go to school. They know school is the environment where their children learn academic subjects best. They know that's where the kids have all those valuable social interactions with peers and with teachers. Many of my students' parents are working hard. They are living in poverty, though, the working poor, and they tell me that their homes really may not be the best place to learn academic subjects. They might not be at home during the day, especially if they're essential workers. The house may not have a quiet extra room or the luxury of reliable internet connection. And all of this is just to say thank you, board. Thank you for keeping the schools as safe as they can be. Thank you for making all those students, making all those decisions that keep the schools safe. I'm sure you did not run for the office of board member so that you could spend a big part of your day talking about disinfectant sprays and plastic lunchroom dividers, but you do, and thank you. And thank you for enforcing the use of masks. My students are fine with them. My students are perfectly fine wearing masks. They know it's an important part of staying safe. And thank you for persevering, and I just want you to know how much you're appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Maria Gallo, followed by Joyce Slavic.
Okay. Hi, my name's Maria Gallo, and I'm a resident of District 211. And I'm here to speak for myself and my friend Jerry Frieda, who is also a resident and who could not be here. We watched the August 19 meeting of this board and were shaken by the personal attacks on board members and the amount of disinformation spread by what seems to be an organized vocal minority in our community that, for political purposes, promotes lies, conflict, and fear, while disregarding the health and safety of the very community that they claim to support. Our community needs to wake up and come to grips with what is going on here quickly. If this board isn't aware, 4 days after your last meeting, just a few miles from here, a large anti-mask rally featuring several far-right Republican politicians took place inside the Cotillion Banquet Hall in Palatine. It was promoted and paid for by a group called Awake Illinois that is in league with other right-wing groups that have no interest in public education other than to diminish its strength. They dismiss public health concerns in favor of dangerous fringe theories, while providing online links on how to create an avalanche of freedom of information requests that will overwhelm school administrations. They demean peer-reviewed scientific studies while providing tutorials on how to spread their disinformation far and wide on social media. So why are the far-right Republicans doing this? They are following the advice of Trump advisor Steve Bannon and others who want to keep their base angry and create chaos at the local level. Their goal is to bully and intimidate people of goodwill like yourselves to remain silent or decide not to run again or to resign. Then, by means of their deep pockets and inflamed base, the far right will work to supplant reasoned leadership with their own radical recruits. That growing effort is happening here, and it's happening as we speak. It's masks now, but when that settles down, it will be how history is taught. And when that fades away, it will be something else. It will always be something else to keep their followers angry and disruptive in the name of their radical political agenda, all the while distracting from our community's mission of providing our kids with a strong education. I want to thank all of this board for serving. More particularly, I want to thank forward-looking members Curtis Bradley, Kim Cavill, and Tim McGowan for standing up to the politically motivated and well-funded targeted attacks on the facts, for standing up to attacks on themselves, and unfortunately for standing up to attacks on basic common decency. Please know you are not alone in your efforts to stand up to these bullies and their intimidation. I ask that this board and this community come together. We must push back and stand firm against this increasingly dangerous threat to the education and the lives of our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Joyce Slavic, and then Kelly Lapatina.
Hi, my name is Joyce Slavic. I am a D211 parent, and I also would like to thank the board for following the science, keeping our kids safe. I saw 11 kids. They get on my kids' bus every day. They're all masked, not a problem. We would all love to get rid of masks, but we need to be vaccinated. But tonight I'm here to speak about the upcoming Iasb resolutions. I'm here to ask the board to vote no this November on 2 proposed Iasb resolutions asking to arm teachers and staff. We're back to that. More guns are not an answer to gun violence. Introducing guns increases anxiety in children, increases the likelihood of accidental or unintentional shooting, and has not proven to be an effective solution. There were armed personnel during Columbine and the Stoneman Douglas High School massacres. A Washington Post analysis from 2018 identified just 2 cases over the previous 19 years in which a resource officer gunned down an active shooter. Adults who were not members of law enforcement have subdued more than a dozen school shooters over those 19 years. Arguments against arming teachers and school resource officers highlight the elevated risk of accidents and negligent use of firearms as more adults in schools are armed. The Associated Press reported that there were more than 30 incidents between 2014 and 2018 that involved a firearm brought to a school by a law enforcement officer or that involved a teacher improperly discharging or losing control of a weapon. When even trained police officers have been found to successfully hit their intended targets in just 18% of incidents involving an exchange of gunfire, it's unrealistic that teachers can be expected to effectively return fire without inadvertently injuring the children they mean to protect. A few facts: students will access teachers' guns. There are multiple incidents where guns were stolen from teachers by students or cases where they were misplaced and later found in the hands of students. Risk of shootings will increase. Access to a firearm, irrespective of age, triples the risk of death by suicide and doubles the risk of death by homicide. There have been several incidents of guns intentionally or unintentionally discharged on school grounds by school staff. And arming teachers introduces liability risks. When several districts in Kansas sought to arm teachers, the insurance companies informed them that they would not insure such a dangerous practice. Best way to protect American schools from mass shootings and gun violence is to adopt an evidence-based intervention plan like the one proposed by Everytown, the American Federation of Teachers, and the National Education Association. Using research about gun violence, these organizations have put together a plan that focuses on intervening before violence occurs. Establishing threat assessment programs will identify risks before they happen. Guns are after-the-fact solutions, when people are already shot. Implement basic security upgrades and plan in advance. That includes things like hardening front entrances and the see something, say something reporting that we use in our district. Establish safe and equitable schools. Schools should review school discipline practices, establish community schools, ensure threat assessment programs are not having a disproportionate impact on communities of color, and promote effective partnerships between students and adults in order to keep schools safe. I believe our new advisory boards for equity and wellness are great examples of this partnership. Improve mental health availability. Remove the stigma and make it more accessible and affordable. Mentally ill people are more likely to be victims of crime rather than perpetrators. More than 90% of individuals who die from suicide had a diagnosable mental disorder. And increase the number of mental health professionals in schools, not the number of guns. And I believe we are hopefully going to be doing that this year. Research shows that strong child access prevention laws decrease unintentional shootings, suicides, and school shootings. Storing firearms away from children is the single most effective way of preventing campus gun violence. Many researchers and gun safety advocates argue. The 2018 Washington Post analysis shows that at least 164 shootings since 1999 were committed by children. If they did not have access to guns, none of those attacks could have happened, sparing more than 256,000 students from enduring violence at the places they go to learn and play. Again, please vote no at this November's Iasb convention for the two
We have
resolutions.
1 minute remaining.
Thank you. To arm teachers and staff making schools less safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly Lopatina, and next would be Jasmine Reeves.
Hi, I just want to start off with this right-wing stuff. I just want to congratulate Democrat Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer and state legislator have agreed no mask mandates in schools, no vaccine passports in Michigan, and preventing state public agencies from enforcing vaccines on employees and customers. She's left-wing. My name's Kelly Lapatina, and I'm a parent of several children in this district and a business owner in Palatine. I have come here to talk about a lot of things, including vaccine, masks, and mandates. Since recommending this vaccine to everyone over 12, this summer 13-year-old boy died days after receiving the first shot of the Pfizer vaccine. He received the vaccine from Walgreens, and within days he suffered from typical shot symptoms, which included fatigue, fever, and a stomach ache. He went to sleep that evening and never woke up. His autopsy showed an enlarged heart. This child was about to enter his freshman year of high school. Another story involves a decorated athlete. He was told the NCAA requires the vaccine in order to compete in his athletics for his college senior year. This young man received the second dose, which sent him to the ER, where he was diagnosed with myocarditis and now cannot complete the rest of his season and may never be able to compete again because the stress his sport can cause to his heart. This young man posted his story on TikTok, which received over 4 million views and has been removed from TikTok as it doesn't promote vaccines. I wonder why there is so much censorship of stories on vaccines and renowned doctors and their research. I wondered this and came across a doctor who mentioned the Trusted News Initiative, Project Origin. The Trusted News Network was developed in the later part of 2019. It is a coalition to tag manipulated media. It is led by the BBC, CBC, Microsoft, and the New York Times. It also includes Facebook, Google, YouTube, AFP, Reuters, European Broadcasting, Financial Times, Wall Street Journal, and the Hindu First. Draft, Reuters, Study of Journalism, Twitter, Washington Post, and many more mainstream media channels. The Trusted News Initiative has come together and only posting or reporting stories that promote worldwide vaccinations. Stories that do not promote vaccinations or other prophylactic treatments that are not vaccinations are removed or not reported on. The FDA has approved the Pfizer shot. In the literature that comes with this vaccine, it states there is no information on male fertility. And fertility, pregnancy, and lactation for women is based on data from rats. It also says the adverse risk for the group of 40 years and younger in men, and especially in the 12 to 17-year-old category for males, is exponentially higher. Until you can tell me without a shred of doubt that my children will be 100% okay, you will never get me to be for mandating this vaccine for anyone. Reported from the Bears, as of September 10th, there have been 1,614 deaths of babies. Cases where, this is from Bears, cases where the symptoms are aborted pregnancy, fetal death, or premature baby death, or premature delivery, or stillbirth, where the mothers had the COVID-19 vaccine administered to them. With all this information, I cannot believe there are mandates for teachers to be vaccinated. I have a neighbor I see walking with her 3-month-old baby, and she is literally picture perfect of a young mother teaching in our local schools. I feel for her that she must choose for her job over the safety of her body and the future of having more children. I'm concerned for her and whether or not she has even had this vaccine against her will and feeding her
1
baby.
minute remaining.
And that she has no choice to be vaccinated. I do not agree with mandating these for teachers. I was surprised when just yesterday, after the teacher vaccine deadline, Pritzker defended the testing option for those who do not want to be vaccinated and have the option to be tested at least weekly basis. Well, follow the money. The Pritzker group is totally in Q Pharmaceutical. They just won a $500 million contract for testing equipment. I say follow the money. I'm wondering if this district had received ESSR money, $14.5 million, I believe. I also, last week, which is my most important topic, and I'm sorry if it goes over in a minute. Last month, you guys struggled over finding a topic for discussion concerning the mandates from our governor. I can't stress enough that sitting in here talking to you is one of the closest things a community member has to voice their concerns in their community.
Time has ended.
It's 2 seconds. I believe the governor has overreached and has taken our local community voice away. I'm also concerned that last month a board member said to Google it. He can't Google this. The entire board must own this together. Together. You guys have got to figure out how to protect our voice.
Ms. Kelly, thank you. Ms. Lipatina, thank you very much.
Yes. I have a topic for your discussion, and it just basically says what legal authority did the board rely on to determine either the governor, Iasb, or the director can mandate masks in school, and what the board is doing to protect our ability to act under its own control
Okay, and you
instead
can
of
just-
state mandates.
Just leave it with Mr. Tenneper. Thank you. Okay, Jasmine Reeves. And then following Jasmine is Risi Yamaguchi. Jasmine.
Hello, I'm Jasmine Reeves. I'm going to remove my mask because I want the boards and everyone else to see the frustration, the hurt, and the anger I have inside of me. I have 3 children that attend District 211. I have a son who's a junior. I have 2 sons who are twins, who are freshmen. For the last 4 years, they have been humiliated. They have been antagonized. As of recently, it has gotten physical with weapons. I heard the teacher from Algonquin say that a lot of parents are worried about their kids, how they're leaving the house, and they're not coming back, the same way, about them being sick. Well, us as parents at District 211 at Palatine High School, who is under the advisory of Principal Medina, we're worried about our children coming home at all, just period. Them returning not in a body bag, or being sent to the emergency room, or getting phone calls, being frantic at 8 a.m. or 7:30 in the morning because our children has been attacked yet again by gang members. August 26th was 1 week after school had started. Our children was brutally attacked by Latin Kings. The school, nothing. There are no metal detectors or anything, so anyone can get inside of the school. We watch with our own eyes. I wear glasses, so with 4 eyes, I watch a student who is not a student of Palatine High School, who was actually an adult, 19 years of age, get past security. That's unacceptable. On September 13th, my son, whom is a freshman, was attacked by 8 gang members. A weapon was used. His hand was sliced. A gun was pulled on my son. The school, nothing. So today, I'm pleading, we're begging for something to happen, something. The policy needs to be different. If you know that you have gang members in these schools and you have kids that actually wants to learn, get them out. There should be nothing to be stated. You know, you have pictures, you have proof, get them out. You cannot guarantee our kids' safety. You cannot guarantee that our kids are gonna come home to us. You cannot even guarantee that someone's gonna walk into the school and not harm our kids. That's not okay for me. When I send my kids to school every day, I look for them to come home, unharmed, untouched, no bruises, no anything. But since 4 years ago, but as of now, this year, it has gotten worse. I have to now look for another place to live. I lost my job because of this. The back and forth, the school, the police, my kids calling me because they're being chased. And when I get there, there's paramedics, there's police officers, my kids are bleeding, they're harmed. The school, still nothing. I watched several students in the school also antagonize the parents. These are the aggressors, not the victims. Our kids are the victims. The principal, whom we keep asking for, never comes, ever. The students do not know who he is. The very first time he came to approach us is because we begged for him. We kept asking and asking and asking. Didn't care, didn't offer any, we call, leave voicemails, never returned our call, ever. The assistant principal, Mr. Smith, phenomenal. Phenomenal. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't get an answer, we wouldn't get a phone call back, anything. I'm coming as a mother, Something has to change. Something has to happen today. Not tomorrow, not next week, today.
You have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Reeves, if you will, make sure you give your information to Mr. Teneper so then we can follow up, because that is very important. And then we have Risi Yamaguchi. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And then Dominique Signauer would be following up. Okay.
Okay. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Risi Yamaguchi. I'm a concerned mom, taxpayer, community member. I just want to say that I back having police officers in school. And after her story, I feel even more strongly that we need police officers in school to protect our kids. And they put their life on the line every day. I realize some kids have anxiety, and after the last 18 months, I can see why. Being denied an education, being denied socialization with their peers, I get it. So if anyone's going to reach a point where they might burst, I really feel confident and comfortable having police in schools. Besides that, I'm for mask optional, and that's all I have. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Dominique, and then followed by Glenn Volkemer.
Hi, my name is Dominique Boussinier, and I have 2 students that go to Palatine High School. One is a junior and one is an incoming freshman. Just as Jasmine stood up here, her boys are at my house every single day, because I live on Cuttingham, and if you guys know, it's a straight shot to be able to walk through the path to get to school. My children can no longer take that path. I pay rent, I go to work, I have an 8-year-old who is autistic, and on the 26th, I had to leave him at the bus stop to go stop boys from jumping on my children. for just walking, They actually wound up hitting my daughter in the chest, and my son had to defend her to make him stop. This is not the first time. It's not even the second time. The first time was by our old location by Motel 6 complex, where he called me and said, hey, Mom, they jumped me. Then at the carnival, it happened again. So there's police reports made. Palatine High School is not doing anything. I have several pictures here that I will pass on to him where they're gangbanging on school property, on the bus, on top of the bus, after school hours. Why? What is the reason that they are there? So as far as, do we need police in our school? Yeah. My freshman doesn't feel comfortable changing in the gym class because they watch him. They make threats. So every day, I'm going to school, dropping them off, picking them up. Oh yeah, and they play sports. My son plays football. My daughter's a cheerleader. They don't care. They've made it well known. I have text messages that I've sent to Mr. Smith. What they say, they run Palatine School. So my question, and I know you guys can't answer, is how as a mother do I send my children every day and be okay? Because I don't feel okay. And there are several mothers that wanted to be here today, but they had to be at work. So I stand here for all of the mothers whose children come to my house on an everyday basis because they're terrified. I'm breaking all types of laws because I've got more than the amount of kids that are supposed to be in my car, but I don't care because I'm gonna make sure that they get to school safe. I'm gonna make sure that they get home because that's the type of mother that I am. And I'm sure that everybody here who has children, grandchildren, or nieces or nephew would do the same thing. But I've watched students walk into the school unannounced, just walk in, nothing. And one of the security guards said to me, we can't catch them all. We can't catch all the fish. Oh, you can't? Well, then maybe I need to sit here and monitor in my lawn chair to make sure that nobody else gets in the school. So you have a lot of families where families play football that are getting ready to leave your school district because they're fed up. And I'm one of them. Doesn't deserve it. My son's an A+ student. My daughter's in AP classes. She has enough credits to graduate this year.
You have 1 minute remaining.
I'm sorry that I sound upset, but I am. And I'm begging you to please, please do something. I'm going to pass these pictures to you.
Thank you, and please leave your contact information with Mr. Teneper, if you would, please. Mr. Volkemer?
Hi, my name is Glenn Volkemer. We moved to Schaumburg about 15 years ago for the great schools, and I have a lighter subject. I just wanted to say that we were disappointed with the school's cancellation of the Powder Puff game, which has been a tradition for over 30 years. We seem to be more disappointed with the school's lack of due diligence, even after they learned about the true feelings of the student body. You know, they did a petition, they put on their own game. There was utter lack of participation at the Powder Puff game, or at the kickball game. But I think what really drove me to be here is that I saw the disappointment in my son's face when he couldn't play drums at the Powder Puff game because the drum line was told, since sectionals were that night, they needed to play drums for the kickball game. So all his friends are at the Powder Puff game, and he's at a kickball game with no one in the stands, and the drum, or the band kids themselves even had to participate in the kickball game, so they had enough players to play. So I don't know. It was just that disappointment. I don't want other kids to have that same disappointment. I hope they bring it back. But I just feel like this is another mediocre effort by the school, and that's not why we moved to Schaumburg. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, at this point, we will move on to our next public hearing, which is on the 2021-2022 budget. And the recommended action is that the public hearing on the 2021-2022 budget of Township High School District 211 is now open. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Need a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, then a voice vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so we are open now for public comment, and it's the same guidelines. I do have one person signed up, Jennifer Reeves. Oh, okay. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak in regards to the budget hearing? Okay. If there is none, then the recommended motion would be that the public hearing on the 2021-2022 budget of Township High School District 211 is now closed. May I have a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? All right, and then we'll do a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Okay, there's no presentations, and the next item is the consent agenda. And is there any item on the consent agenda that a board member would like to remove? Okay, if there is none, then the recommended action is that the consent agenda be approved as presented. May I have a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Okay, roll call?
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Mr. Kramer?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye. All right, then that takes us to special reports and communication. We have the Freedom of Information Act, that's information item. We have the report on new professional staff. It's an information item also. The next is the 6-day enrollment information item, if anyone has any questions. Okay, that takes us to the class size committee report. The next item is the salary compensation report, if anyone has any questions. The next item is the summer school enrollment and cost analysis. Again, that's for information, if there's any questions. Okay, then that takes us to the downtown Palatine TIF extension. And that's an item for discussion here, and I will turn that over to Dr. Small here for some information, and then we can have some discussion in regards to it.
The downtown Palatine TIF district was created in 1999, which has provided for the redevelopment of the area and is set to expire in the year 2022. The expectation of the TIF is for incremental growth in the EAV to provide funding for identified projects within the TIF redevelopment and improvement plan through the Village of Palatine. The property values of the downtown Palatine TIF decreased from 2009 to 2011, and the TIF lost an estimated $19 million projected revenue to fund the designated TIF projects. The TIF area has not recovered the lost EAV levels sufficiently to complete the several improvement projects, including stormwater and flooding improvements, parking improvements for streetscape, pedestrian safety, and lighting. The Village of Palatine is proposing the TIF extension to collect revenues to complete the remaining projects. The revenue is expected to be gained within the first 2 years of a potential extension, but the TIF needs to remain open until all projects are complete. Therefore, the village is proposing that the surplus payments be made back to the taxing districts as presented in the board meeting write-up tonight. The financial impact to the district is estimated over the first 2 years of being $4 million of revenue. It is recommended that if the board is supportive of this potential TIF extension, an intergovernmental agreement be approved that is approved by the Village of Palatine first and then presented to this board at an October meeting. The Village of Palatine has been meeting with Lauren Hummel, Barb Peterson, and myself regarding this TIF extension. Tonight, Paul Merrick, the Village of Palatine Director of Finance and Operations, and Mike Jacobs, the Village of Palatine Deputy Village Manager, are here tonight to answer any questions that the board might have in regards to the village.
I know the board members were asked ahead of time if they had any questions. I don't know if anyone had submitted anything.
No.
Okay. Any questions in regards to the TIF district and the impact and so on?
Yeah, just a general, where is the, I know Palatine a bit, where is the TIF located? What area?
Can the representative from Palatine please come to the podium? And if you would introduce yourself, please.
Sure. Mike Jacobs, Deputy Manager, Village of Palatine. So the downtown TIF district is generally located between Palatine Road, Colfax, Plum Grove, and Smith Street in general description. So it really covers the heart of downtown and extends a little bit beyond that.
Is it blighted?
Well, when it was originally created, it had to qualify for all the qualifications of a TIF district, which included blight.
Thank you. Then, in writing the resolution, I couldn't hear, was District 211 involved in writing the draft, or was that just the village?
The intergovernmental agreement?
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a draft resolution. Was District 211 involved in writing the resolution, or is that strictly the Village of Palatine? Who wrote the resolution?
The intergovernmental agreement that's presented as a draft for your review was initiated by both Districts 211 and 15, and our attorney drafted it.
Okay, sorry, wrong terminology. The agreement, yes. Okay.
An additional question, if we may ask, is it just 211 and 15 on the intergovernmental agreement, or would the Village of Palatine have an agreement with other municipal taxing bodies that would be impacted?
If I can, I believe I'm speaking on behalf of the village as well, but my understanding is that the intergovernmental agreement would be between the two school districts and the village. Certainly, though, the other taxing bodies have all been a part of the conversations and are being also asked to express their support of the TIF extension in writing to the village manager so that they may submit that to the General Assembly for consideration.
I do know that over the last couple of years, and maybe Mr. Jacobs could clarify that, we did get about $1 million from Palatine because there was money that was because of the current TIF that you have. So we were recipients of some extra money.
I can speak to that. That over the past several years, we've received over $8 million in TIF surplus funds from the various TIFs in the Village of Palatine. They have consistently paid those TIFs when the surpluses are available.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I think what we need at this point then is for the board to give me some kind of consensus and a consensus for the superintendent, whether we should act on the intergovernmental agreement between our district and the village. So I'm looking for some feedback for you in supporting of the TIF extension. So just kind of a consensus, if I may, maybe start with Mr. Bradley. Would you be in favor of this?
I would be in favor of it.
Okay. Mr. Kramer?
Absolutely.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. McGowan?
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski?
No.
Okay, and I would also be in favor of it. So it appears the consensus is that we're in favor of the intergovernmental agreement.
So after the approval from the Village of Palatine, it would then be brought back here for a formal vote at our October meeting.
Okay? All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for being here tonight.
All right, then that takes us to the unfinished business, and the first item is an action item, and the recommended motion is that the Board of Education adopt the resolution as presented to establish the fiscal year of the school district to begin July 1st, 2021, and end June 30th, 2022, and that the budget as presented for the fiscal year 2021-2022 be adopted. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Do I give a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
I think that it's, this budget, it's our responsibility to ensure that we have our resources and assets working for our community and the district as a whole. This budget doesn't address a lot of the surpluses. It doesn't have a plan for the land sale dollars that came from the sale of the 60 acres. It just sets it there and does nothing with it. The whole purpose of selling the land was putting those monies to use for the district, and instead, we as a board have just left that out there. I can't good conscience agree to a budget that neglects putting those resources to use.
Any other comments?
The process, for the ultimate baseline for creating the budget, do you start with the projected revenues and then budget to that, or do you start what used to be called zero-based budgeting, saying, what do you need?
I would say in most instances, we are zero-based budgeting. We are certainly, the majority of our budget is based on our staff. We have, and the staffing needs are driven by the enrollment in our classes and the programs that we are running. In all of the various areas, when we are preparing budgets for technology, for our operations and maintenance, for those areas, they are building the budget line item by line item, and we are then taking that detail, reviewing that detail, and placing it into the budget.
A question that I asked before, and he gave me a great answer, but I want to review it. There is a lot of money sitting on the table right now, $34 million by accounts, land sale plus surpluses. Could that have been used to fund the budget rather than, and all that creates another surplus? Could that have been done?
Well, when we last discussed the land sale proceeds, part of the discussion was that we had proposed some legislation. That legislation was stalled in the last session and was planned to be brought forward into the veto session this fall. And the discussion was that we would await to see what happened with that before we came back and had further discussion on the possible uses of land sale proceeds. So could we have budgeted something different? Certainly, but I think the discussion last time we talked about the utilization or the possible uses of those proceeds was to wait until we had more information targeting November.
So I guess the next question, it's not part of this, but the $34 million, that's going to come up as part of the levy discussion, I would assume? How do we account for that in a levy?
Yes, we will have information on our financial projection that will be prepared at the time of the levy, and we will certainly, that will be the timeline by which we have information for you on the legislation and other topics, and that the levy is certainly a key driver of our long-term financial status, and those are all interwoven variables that will be discussed.
Yeah, I'm going to waffle a little bit. I'm not going to vote no, and I'm not going to vote yes for this, but I would, with the understanding that the surplus that we have will be pretty definitive, and that will be included as in the levy discussion to actually reduce the levy. I'm not saying that you're going to commit to reducing the levy, but the $34 million or so be included in a projection and in any discussion or presentation that you have, and so we would be able to reduce the levy by $34 million. Can we do that?
We can certainly have a discussion, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I have a couple comments. One is my recollection of our discussion around approving the land sale was to be fiscally responsible with assets of this district, which included the land, and the decision was made rather than sitting with all of this land that belonged to the district quite honestly unnecessarily because there was going to be no new school built on that land, that the board decided, rather than sitting with that acreage, that it would be in the best interest of the community and the school district to sell that land. I don't recall discussion that based on the land sale, we were going to have to quickly determine what purpose that money was going to be used. I would rather be very responsible and listen to the community as well as assess the district need in determining how best to use that money. The fact that that money is sitting there does not mean we should spend it. It means we should be fiscally responsible with that new asset that we have of $17 million. Secondly, regarding what discussion we're going to have come the levy, I think that's really up to the board. And if you want to have discussion around a $34 million deficit or the money related to the land sale and how best to utilize that within the levy and the potential decrease of the levy, increase of the levy, status of the levy, and come discussion of the levy, any new updates we have on the legislation that's before Springfield, I welcome those discussions as well. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, I would also add to that, and I've said this before, we do not have any debt. We do not have any loans. We do not have the working cash. We do not have debt. That was important, and that was why we have a certain amount of money in the surplus. And as Mr. Rosenblum said, that 17 million, we don't know exactly at this moment what it'll be used for as far as capital improvements, or any other things that come before us. But I think just like any other, this is a huge household, the school district, but just like any other household, you save money when you need to replace your roof or you need to do other things. You don't save the money and then spend it just because you can. So I think we have to be cognizant of that and see what the needs are at each of our schools, what we need for the capital improvement. And prior boards have worked really hard to get us out of debt and make certain that we don't have debt. We are doing well. We have the money available. We maintain our buildings, and I think that that's really important for the safety aspect and keeping everything safe.
And I agree with that. I had the opportunity to sit in a facility committee meeting on Tuesday evening, and I'll go into more detail later. But there were some numbers that were staggering to me. We have 1.4 million of square footage on our buildings, the roofs. And so within the next 5 years, some of that square footage will be over 30 years old, which will need to be addressed immediately. And so that was just one item. Then I had an opportunity to go through the cafeteria at Friend High School that has never been remodeled. And so I agree, at some point, the money would be necessary to be placed in one of our budgets, whether it's major repairs, life safety, or just routine maintenance. So I definitely agree. If it's sitting, like anyone that went through this pandemic, if they had a savings account, it would have been a lot smoother for them to go through this pandemic, but the ones didn't, we really struggled.
And just to remind everyone, as genuine as I think we might be comparing the district to a household, it's important to realize and recognize that our community taxpayers are paying their levy. We had projected a significant shortfall, and that was never realized. So thank you to the community that has made sure that they've paid their property tax bills. And with respect to the annual increases that they see on their property taxes, it's our responsibility to balance that when we're utilizing our resources and not squirrel them away without a plan.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, if there are none, then may I, excuse me, may I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Dombrowski?
Nay.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Mr. Kramer?
Present.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye. Okay, and the motion carries then. The next item of business is the proposed policy revision, BBB, school board elections, and the The recommended action is that the board policy file BBB, school board elections, be adopted as proposed and included in the board policy manual. Further, that the superintendent be directed to make appropriate distributions. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, if there is none, roll call, please.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Mr. Kramer?
Aye.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye. The next item, the recommended action is, it's in regards to the proposed policy revision BCBA board officers. The recommended action is that the board policy file BCBA board officers be adopted as proposed and included in the board policy manual. Further, that the superintendent be directed to make appropriate distribution. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Mr. Kramer?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye. The next item under new business is the 2021 tax levy introduction. It's an information item. I don't know if Dr. Small
I
would like
may?
to add some.
As you know, in the financial world, we tend to go from one segment into the next. We have now finished the budget, and we move immediately into the levy discussion. So that this is, as President Klimkowitz just said, an introduction to our levy as information. We will continue down the procedure for the levy with the board action finishing in December in regard to the levy.
Does anyone have any questions of Dr. Small or anything in regards to the levy? Okay, if there is none, then we will move on to community engagement discussion. And this was asked to be put on the agenda for discussion. So I'll open it up for discussion.
And the intent of the item was to establish a mechanism or a committee that would allow our community members to have more than just 5 minutes at a podium where we're just actively listening. So I think that we can establish a committee and allow for more interaction with the board.
I don't think that that was actually it. I think we were looking to find out what are we looking for as far as community engagement. So I'd like to hear from each of the board members and what are your thoughts in regards to this?
To
So you
Mr.
would like-
I'm sorry, to Mr. Dombrowski's point, I agree with establishing somewhat of a community engagement committee like we had in previous years, where we can have that open dialogue and address concerns. Now, I don't think that that should be held during our regular board meetings, just for the sake of resources and time, but I do think there should be some type of separate committee formed to be able to immediately respond to the residents.
Okay, let's talk about that a little bit. We do have the form here for the public comments, which provides us information. I think that that's extremely vital. And we have been, to my knowledge, if someone would like a response or there's an action that needs to be taken or something the school needs to be aware of, then the superintendent has directed the appropriate person to act on that.
I
So-
think it's more of an open dialogue and back and forth, something like and I think Mr. Dombrowski brought this up before, kind of like a coffee and conversation where we're here, we're engaging with them and whatever their concerns are, whether that's in the morning, kind of like we did with the Community Engagement Committee, and maybe based on how often they meet, maybe we allocate a week, a day within a month, or maybe a day bi-weekly, or whatever that would look like.
Okay, I think that's a little bit different, having kind of a coffee and a time, as opposed to having a group of, are you talking about having a group of people that are set members of this committee providing us information?
No, I'm thinking more of along the lines of what the Village of Schaumburg does with their coffee with the council over at the police station. They post an agenda, they have an open meeting, they take minutes, and they follow all of the OMA requirements, and that would be something along the lines of an opportunity for community members, similar to what Mr. Volkemer had said and Ms. Weeks, these are issues that we need to be aware of, but we also need to be able to ask questions and understand more than just what's being conveyed, because, good communication goes both ways.
Mhm. I agree with you on that. I did talk with Mr. Townsend, who's the business manager over at the Village of Schaumburg. And yes, they meet, they kind of have a bit of an agenda and maybe a particular topic that they present. They do it in an hour, or try to keep it to an hour. They do try to make certain that people move along so someone doesn't monopolize it. And also, and I'm trying to be tactful in regards to this, it should not be a forum where somebody comes and verbally assaults and attacks a trustee or a board member.
And
Because we've had that here, where people have come and just belittled the board, disparaging remarks, yelled at us, called people names, and that's not appropriate.
And I think that when we sit here without a response to very legitimate concerns, we dehumanize ourselves by not engaging. And I think that part of the reason that we are sustaining such disrespect throughout the whole state, this isn't to the point that was made earlier with the House bills, House Bill 4151, right, where they're actually trying to legislate out protests at schools and school board meetings, and we're sitting here silently. It doesn't. People then don't understand if we even empathize with their concerns. We teach social emotional learning in schools, but we don't practice it here at a school board. So, in my opinion, if we want to practice what we preach, we kind of need something like this.
So I've had the opportunity to attend several Schaumburg coffees, and the way that they operate, for anybody who hasn't been, is there's a representative from each arm of the Schaumburg Village government. The head of the police department, the head of the fire department, the head of roads and whatever that's called, the transportation, public works is there, and the village president is there, and there's somebody there from the financial department as well. And it's an opportunity for people in the community to ask questions or make comments. And the responses that are provided are informational or questions to clarify, usually by whichever department the person is talking about, right? If it's something like the plows never come down my street until a week after the snowstorm, right? Then it's an opportunity for the head of public works to talk about, and they actually this past winter, when that question was brought up, or something of that nature, there was a presentation on how they plow the roads and how they schedule the routes and things like that. So it was interactive, but I think we need, and I don't have an issue with that at all, but I think we need to be a little cautious in setting the parameters around what that interaction is going to be, and that if, for instance, if all the board members are not there, or even if all the board members are there, that the interaction is more informational exchange and understanding, and not that somebody gets up and says, you board member, I want to know why you made this decision, right? And then have a board member answer that question.
So that wouldn't be informational?
That's a question for that board member, not in a board setting, because then that person would be answering perhaps on why the board made a decision on an individual basis.
But if we're in open session like we are now, we're sharing opinions, we're having a discussion.
We are with each other as board members.
Correct, in an open session. And that's really all that committee needs to be, is an open session.
But the discussion that we have is with each other, not with the public, in this open session.
In this format.
Correct.
In the format with community engagement, it wouldn't have to be.
But then again, we're answering questions or giving answers to questions as individual board members.
Not
And
if you're
I
in
think we have to be cautious of that.
If it's an open meeting,
You're still an individual board member.
if
Whether
an
it's in an
meeting-
open meeting or closed meeting or,
we meet as a whole, we're in an open meeting, we're not acting independently and individually.
but if you're answering someone's question, you're answering it individually. You're not answering, if someone said, if someone asked a question,
Mr. Rosenblum, the only way we can speak as a board, as a whole, is through a vote. So unless there's a motion at one of these committee meetings, I don't think it carries any weight or is relevant to your concern.
And if I might just kind of try
hold-
to
hold
clarify,
on, and
there
vote.
would not be, a vote going on there. I think if we were to have, such a coffee or whatever it might be, an opportunity to dialogue with the community, I would like to see, possibly having some staff with us to maybe answer some of those questions, because we don't know the answers. We don't have all of the answers. We most definitely don't. And some of the questions we've been asked take more time and information. So I think if we can have a dialogue, I think that's good. I think if we can share information, I think that that's very positive. But people would have to understand that we may not have an answer for them, or they also have to understand they may not like the answer that they get, because that's the way it is.
for instance, people in the community say, I want to know what you as a board are going to do about blah, 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 right? And for us to then individually say, well, this is what we're going to do. And we can't do that in that type of a format.
I don't know who would do that.
That's why I'm saying
Well-
we need to
well-
set some parameters around not doing that, is all I'm saying.
All right, you guys are getting real super specific right now, but the reality is I've been really adamant about communication and transparency in the district for a long time. So I'm biggest voice for communication, especially with the community that we represent. So separating everything you guys are saying, the administration, number one, I'm not sure if the school board, we have to have administration here, correct? For any type of open meeting, we have to have administration, we have to have staff. Can we do this? Can we have official board member capacity meetings without administration present? Would be my first question.
I'm not sure. I'd have to look up the requirement. I'd always be there with you.
Okay, well, for sure, okay. And then to, I can't remember who said it, but to that point where we have community members that come here week after week, and I'll point out last week there was a community member that literally, shamed us for not being responsive to emails, and then in that same comment shamed me for responding and not liking my response. So at what point, we got to keep it productive at this point, and that's my concern. I don't want to sit somewhere and be yelled at, and it's supposed to be informational, and it just turns into a shouting match or, like you said, verbal assault at this point with some of the things that are said. So we have to be sure to keep it inside those parameters, but the conversations kind of need to happen at this point. We've expressed our communication. We can get better to those points. We've expressed our social media. We have communications person. At this point, as much as I am all for communication with the community, I don't think this type of committee is going to be as productive as we want it to be, just based off the experience I've had so far. I would much rather focus on our student wellness committee and our family and community service committee, and we can break those up, and that way speak directly with the district.
I think maybe let's change the terminology a little bit. It would not be a committee if we were to have something as proposed as a meeting with a dialogue. It would just be a meeting, an open meeting to the community for a dialogue. It would not be a committee.
Okay.
And I think that's where I was getting confused. But
With the dialogue.
yes, and that's a very valid point.
But if it's still, even if it's something just as informal as coffee, how do we keep it productive? How do we keep it from community members getting up here saying, things that aren't relevant, things that aren't true, things that aren't really going to help the purpose of what we're doing here? Because I don't know how much time you have in the day.
Well, if we limit it to an hour, I think, again, having that empathy and having that dialogue, I've always found that people, once you sit down and talk to somebody in person, it removes that animosity, and you have a shared experience to work from versus, just being on opposite sides of the fence, lobbing stones without really seeing who's on the other side.
And that's my point. We have community members that aren't necessarily looking for information. They just don't necessarily care for the actions or the thought process of the Board of Education, and that's not productive. Does that make sense?
Again, it's optional to board members. I don't think it would be a mandatory meeting, and if there's concern that you would be targeted, I would say stay home.
Well,
and
I
more than
already
willing
am. So I'm just trying to see how we can make this productive at this point, because it is a
Yeah.
target, and there's nonstop at this point. So how do we ensure that me leaving my family on additional evening to come out and represent my community, that it's not a complete waste of my time? Unless the only way where this really makes sense in application for me is if we have questions submitted prior to showing up. That way we can have our answers prepared.
I look at it this way: if somebody in the community is willing to sacrifice an hour from their family with a valid concern to bring it to our attention and feels that this is something that they value and hold personally, I feel that it's my obligation to provide the same respect and to show up and listen, or do what I can to assist them. I mean, that's why I chose to run, was to be a part of the community and bring that dialogue and engagement back. I mean,
So what would be the purpose of the Family and Community Service Committee at that point then, if we're having a
that's
dialogue?
by invitation usually. That's not open to anybody. I mean, if you're a taxpayer with no children in the district, you're not going to get an invite to that.
Is that accurate, President Klimkowitz?
Which one?
My turn?
The
You know,
family and community? Well,
Oh, I'm sorry, was that?
all right, let's, if you don't mind, let's get some input here from our two gentlemen.
I'm sorry, not to interrupt you, but Tim had a question on
What was the
if there was
question,
an
Tim?
open invite, or would it be?
Yeah, for our Family and Community Service Committee, right? Correct? Is it open to the public, or is that by invite only?
The family, community and family services, the one that Pete and Tim sit on.
Correct.
That's where our local service providers come together. I'm not sure that that's a closed meeting. It wouldn't be common for someone to come in and listen to the discussion.
Yeah, that one has, there's like, 70 emails that go out in regards to that for the meeting. So it has a lot of the different community agencies, various nonprofits, the municipalities that participate in that.
So it's
I'm
more
not
so.
sure which administrator is serving on that one also.
And then maybe that one becomes the open meeting.
It-
You have
That
represent.
would,
No,
that
that
has a different purpose.
So it's just more, that's more so community services. Okay, I'm new, I'm trying to understand.
So that's a little bit different. Mr. Kramer or Mr. Curtis? one
I'm
of you
fine,
gentlemen
Mr.
wanna
Kramer.
start?
Listening to the stuff, I hear a couple of different, not conflicting things, but things that have to be determined loosely. Format, content, and scheduling. To engage the community, we need to go there. We don't want them to have to come here. We've got 5 schools. I see an opportunity for 1 meeting per month for 5 months, okay? And to develop the content of that meeting, I think there will have to be an effort on the part of the district to engage the community and get from them a month ahead of time, what do you want to talk about? What do you want to hear? So we have, we kind of have a box, and we have something to focus on.
And we
One
can
of the
be
things
prepared.
that frustrates me as a board member sitting at this table is, like we heard tonight, I had no idea that there was gang activity at Palatine High School, on the grounds around and that needs to come to, we need to be available in a timely manner so that we're not 6 weeks behind a power curve on stuff like that. We've had other people talk about health and wellness and that sort of stuff, and if we are sincere about engaging the community, we got to go there, and it's got to be on a Saturday afternoon, or some other convenient time when most people are off of work. I don't see it working any other way.
Mr. Bradley?
I think I'm in consensus with that. I agree with that totally. A time that's convenient for us all, and getting out to each school, kind of like I did at FREM the other day, having the opportunity to walk the grounds prior to the meeting, and just being there.
Yep.
And again, I think because we will get direct questions if it's not formatted right. I believe it will be, I don't necessarily know if it will be considered a board member or if it will be an optional meeting for us. Because again, some of us will be more comfortable than others attending this type of formatted meeting.
Yeah, another detail, I was here, I didn't mention it. I think it's an opportunity, because it's not an informal setting, it's not a convened meeting, it's not a convened formal meeting necessarily, but there will be time after, if somebody wants to, a member of the community wants to approach a board member or members individually, they can come on and say, hey, Mr. Kramer, what do you think about this? Or I would like to bend your ear on that. That is how we engage the community, rather than having this kind of sterile environment once a month for 5 minutes to get a lot of information that we should have known prior.
So I have a couple comments. One is, if there's going to be targeting, as was mentioned here, at one of these meetings, then the meeting should not happen. Right. That's not the purpose of the meeting. The purpose of the meeting is to be transparent and share information, not to be yelled at and screamed at or cursed at or accused of things, but rather to seek information and exchange information. Secondly, is I'm hopeful that anybody who's here tonight, for instance, that would like to speak with me after the meeting, I'm often the last one out of this room except the facilities guy. So if you would like to speak with me about any concerns you have, I would very much welcome the opportunity to do that following this meeting, either in this room or out in the parking lot or wherever you'd like to have that conversation. We could set up a time to meet later, whatever works for you. I welcome that as well. So I don't know about after a community engagement meeting, anybody who wants to talk to me can line up afterwards. I encourage you to do that now. I encourage you to shoot me an email and ask if we can get together for a cup of coffee. I know Mr. Dombrowski is very open, I think we all are, to having those coffees, having those one-on-ones. I'll meet with you anywhere but my house, because my dog will go crazy. But would love to have those interactions with you outside of this board meeting, outside of a community engagement meeting, whatever works. But I hope that a community engagement format would not be so formal that people don't want to come or don't feel comfortable coming, and that we give the opportunity for the person to say something and us to respond and have that interactive dialogue, so to speak.
I've given this a lot of thought, and this is something that, over the years I've truly supported about communication. I think this is really informative when we have parents who come here and give us information. And I know we can't give them answers right away. I wrote some things down, and that's what I'd like to share, and then I have maybe a suggestion. Community engagement's really essential, and the community input is important. I welcome it from the various sources. We have the public comment portion, where we hear the concern and an issue can be presented, and if the speaker requests a response, one is provided. And as I said before, to my understanding, we've responded to the questions and concerns that have come up. One concern is that some of the comments, again, have been derogatory, disrespectful verbiage towards specific board members, and that's not appropriate behavior, nor does it help resolve an issue that may be occurring or has occurred. Threats to board members are also inappropriate. I ask that you keep it in mind that these past 2 months have been really difficult to sit here for an hour and a half and to listen in most cases to individuals yelling and disparaging the board. We listen. I truly believe each one of us listens, and we try to address the concerns presented. A board meeting is our only means by which the board can carry out its duties and conduct business, because this is a meeting of the Board of Education. We do receive emails from individuals who are not able to attend meetings and indicate their support of the board. They're not here all the time. And sometimes it's difficult to respond to those numerous emails, and I apologize for that, because I do work full-time and sometimes it is difficult. But I do read the emails, and I believe each one of us reads those emails and takes them to heart. And I believe that we will continue to listen, no matter what. Everyone has a right to speak to us and to address the board. We do have resources for communication. We have the Booster Club, which Mr. Kramer and Mr. Bradley sit as representatives. We have the Community and Family Services. Mr. Dombrowski and Mr. McGowan serve. We have the Parent Connections and Communications. That's Mr. Dombrowski and Kim Cavill. We have the Student Wellness Group. We have Ms. Cavill and Mr. McGowan. We also have at the schools, which I think is vital, and maybe we need that part of the information. We have parent advisory groups. We have a student advisory at each of the schools. Quite possibly, maybe it would be helpful to get a summary from each of those schools, from those various groups, to let us know what's going on at the school. What are the students seeing? What's happening? What are those parent advisory groups seeing? That might be an option for a little bit more communication. The open house. I had the opportunity that I'm going to speak about later on about going over to Fremd High School and being able to talk to some of the parents there. That's an opportunity for communication. We go to events. If you're in the football stands, if you're in the auditorium for a concert or things, we've got an opportunity. So I would invite people to come up and talk to me. And I do try to talk to people at those events, so I think that that's important. The final thing that I would like to maybe propose to this group is that last month we agreed to a request for a proposal for a company to help prepare for the strategic plan. And part of that includes a survey of the entire community. And we want to know what kind of communication works best for the community. And I would really like to ask us if we can wait until we get some proposals, take a look at maybe some of this, develop the surveys, get some information, and maybe this would be part of, having this coffee with the board or bagels with the board event might come to fruition. And maybe more board members would feel comfortable attending something like that because we know that that's what the community wants.
With all due,
They're just my
with all due
thoughts.
respect, Madam President, after hearing the two mothers from Palatine High School, I see no reason to delay in providing more opportunity to have dialogue.
I think that has to be addressed. That's going to be addressed immediately. So,
I hear everything that you guys are saying, and everybody has a really good response and what I would say, but the children are scared to say anything. So I'm just going to say that, and you guys can
Okay.
kind of think about that, but they're not talking to any of the committees because they're scared.
okay, and I appreciate that, but we don't have a dialogue.
And
I didn't expect a response, I just wanted to.
Okay, and I think that's important, and that's something that we heard tonight, and knowing Dr. Small, I know that she's going to be on the phone tonight with somebody. So this is really important.
Right, and the only reason I point that out is because they said they're speaking for other mothers who are working and cannot be here, and our meetings once a month may not be frequent enough to the point where immediate action wasn't happening, or they felt they weren't getting a response at the level they needed, and this was the time that they felt was their best opportunity to reach us. If we have another event that isn't scheduled, and to the other point, wait around after the meeting. If we're not getting out of these meetings till 12:30 or 1 o'clock, please go home, go to sleep, don't wait for me. But the point is that we can become more available as a board, and we can do more. And to delay that or to find a reason not to because we're afraid of some harsh words, I can't understand that.
I don't think we're afraid of the harsh words. I think, how productive are some of the things? And I think I'm not arguing against having something going down the road. I think that maybe let's take it a step at a time. let's get our, the company that we're going to be working towards, let's get a survey, let's find out what's the communication out. I know some of the moms, or people do send us emails, and maybe we need to let people know that emails, if you have concerns and they're not being addressed, that there is also, if you've gone to the teacher, the principal.
Madam
Got the
President, I brought this up in April. It's now September. Can I request that you poll the board to see if we want to wait as a whole?
I'd like to, before we do that, mention one other thing, and that is there are at least 2 board members currently serving on this board who, as part of their campaign, spoke about the importance and goals of having town halls or interactive meetings with the community. I know I was one of them, and I know who the other one is, but I won't say. But that was something that we wanted to do when we were running to serve on this board and represent the community and have those interactive conversations. And that was a while ago. So I concur with Mr. Dombrowski. I would rather, let's get something scheduled. Let's set the kind of the expectation around what's supposed to happen at that meeting. I don't care where it's held. I also think it shouldn't be necessarily held here because this is a really formal and often, what's the word I'm thinking?
Intimidating?
Intimidating environment, right? This is our room, is what some people say, right? I want to be in the people's room, and if that's at a cafeteria or gym or wherever, I'd like to do that and see where it goes.
Okay, the last thing I'm going to throw out is it cannot be political. It cannot be political. It can't be you're building your platform for people for reelection, running for other offices type of thing. It cannot be political.
I think to your point earlier, we would have to create an agenda prior to the meeting, and we stick to the agenda, especially if we're doing an hour span or whatever that time period will look like. So I think the board would have to agree on the agenda since the entire board may not be there representing us.
Well, that's, to me, it's kind of a yes and a no type of a thing. If somebody comes before us and they ask us a particular question, what are we going to say to them? You're not on the agenda? I think maybe there might be a topic that we present, but other items, should be able to come forward. So we can certainly develop something.
Correct.
So, okay, let me see if there's consensus to move on to develop a plan to have a meeting, probably at one of the schools might be the best place. Possibly look at having some administration with us. I don't know what time works better, so that might be a discussion we probably need to have. Is it something in the evening, or are you looking for like a Saturday type of a thing? So if I may, can I talk with Dr. Small in regards to that and see what we can come up with, and maybe share some suggestions with the board members and see what we can finalize? Maybe.
And Mrs. Klimkowitz, I would be happy to work with you on that as well.
All right, that would be good. All right, Mr. Curtis, or Mr. Bradley?
I agree with that, and I think maybe we give ourselves a deadline, whether it's a week or two, with some results and what that will look like.
Okay, what if we work on that and we get you some dates before our next meeting? I think our next meeting is, whatever it is.
First, I think. We can meet, and I can put it in a board letter, the weekly board letter that informs you of
Perfect.
what's going on in the schools.
Thank you.
Okay, let's do that. Okay, Mr. Kramer?
Yeah, no action is an action, and I'd rather take action than not do anything. I would prefer to set a date now. I know that that's probably not going to happen, but I'd like to have a date kind of in stone in the next 10 days. Say, hey, this I think a Saturday works because I think most people there are going to be more people available on a Saturday than there are on any given evening, so that would be helpful, and let's do it. Let's just do it.
Okay, I know some people work on a Saturday. I know, Mr. Bradley, you don't work on a Saturday. Oh, all right, we got you. All
I
right,
do
Mr.
attend college
Rosenblum?
football games.
I-
on
I could-
Saturdays. I do attend college football games.
I concur with what's, as long as it's not during an Ohio State game. Anyway, no, I concur. I'd also concur with both Mr. Bradley and Mr. Kramer to get something on the books, set the start talking about the parameters again, working with you all on doing that. And so I'm very much in favor.
Okay. Mr. Dombrowski?
A resounding yes.
Okay.
Sure.
Mr. McGowan?
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
All right, then we'll work on something and get some information out to the board members, and then we can firm some things up. All right, thank you. All right, and then the next item is the board member expense, and the recommended action is that the Board of Education approve the pre-approval form for future expense reimbursement for Anna Klemkowitz to attend the North Cook Division Fall Dinner Meeting September 22nd, 2021, and the North Cook Division Spring Dinner Meeting March 2022 as submitted. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Kramer?
Present.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Present.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye. Okay, we've got the 4 votes, so it passes. All right, so the next is potential topics for future discussion. I did not get any kind of emails. All right.
Yeah, I do have a potential topic. It's sensitive, I apologize for that, but it does need to be discussed. We're now entering into a board negotiation, and we have 3 board members whose campaigns were paid for by the teachers union. I don't want to say it's a conflict of interest, it's at least a perceived conflict of interest. I think we need to we need to take a look at creating a policies or some language, not necessarily with the ethics policy, but how does the board react, and what should board members do who have accepted substantial amounts of money from the union in a situation like this where they're going to vote on a contract?
Okay, in regards to that, is there a consensus to have such a discussion?
Last I checked, the Illinois State Board said that it wasn't a conflict, so I don't see the point of having a conversation. It's something that's ruled. It's not an issue here.
Okay.
And everything is in perspective, so I don't know what would be considered a substantial amount of money and someone's individual campaign if they're not the campaign
Would
manager.
$10,000 as an aggregate
If you don't
be
mi-
considered?
if you don't mind-
Is that a
if you don't
substantial?
mind-
Yeah, over $10,000 was spent
Mr.
between
Kramer.
the teachers union locally and the Chicago Federation of Labor.
I think
Mr.
first you
Kramer?
probably should have spent some time looking at the code of conduct and how meetings should be addressed, because I was speaking, thank you.
Pardon me?
And so I don't think that it should be up for conversation because it's all perspective. Unless you are a campaign manager in my campaign, you wouldn't know what was actually donated to my campaign, and I am able to take an unbiased standpoint in my negotiating with the union.
That's not true.
Okay. All right, and Mr. Kramer, you're the one who's presenting it. Mr. Rosenblum, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are not to have this discussion, that not only from a monetary perspective, but simply an endorsement perspective. And to Mr. McGowan's comment that at a higher level, it was deemed that it was not a conflict of interest by any member of the board. So I do not think that it is something that should be discussed.
Okay. And I concur with that statement also. I would like to point out that when we do the union negotiations, all 7 board members are part of it. It's not one person, 2 persons, 3. It is all 7 board members have say in regards to it, how the negotiations, go forward. So 7 board members are part of it. It is not one person. So there is not support for that, so that will not be a discussion topic.
Madam President,
Going around
please
and asking.
record my support for a discussion on that topic.
I beg your pardon?
Please formally record my support for a discussion on that topic.
I apologize if I missed you. Okay, thank you. The next item is our committee reports, Nsseo. And we met this past Tuesday, and we were over at Sunrise Camp. We had our board protocols and agreement session. It was lovely. If you haven't gone out to Sunrise Camp, which is in Bartlett right off of 59, please have an opportunity to do so. It's a wonderful, wonderful setting for our kids with disabilities. There's handicap accessible, wheelchair accessible. There's just a variety of things. It's a lot of opportunities. They also have chickens there, so it's wonderful for the kids to be able to see them, be able to hold them. It's amazing. And the director there, Brian Bolger, is just an amazing person. He has a true love of nature and of children. As for the board meeting itself, we recognized one of our students from District 211 that attends Kirk School, and they are working with social emotional programs, getting the kids to understand their feelings. They have a term that said interoception, and it's a sense that allows us to feel internal sensations or body signals, and being able to understand how those signals connect to emotions. So that's what they're working on with our young people, on self-regulation. And Shining Star, we identified, there were 2 students that were identified, and as I said, one of them was a 211 student who have been working on this and being able to identify their emotions. Dr. Hackett also talked about the ESSER 3 funds. We're finally getting something for Nsseo of substance in regards to it. They're going to be getting $1.1 million to be able to utilize for the lost learning, summer enrichment activities, and after-school program activities. They're also focusing on continuous improvement goals, and that they're working on the Diagnostic and Education Services Center, the DESC Center, and that's the group that provides support to our member districts and to any other school districts that need support for adaptation of physical education, assistive technology, and things of that nature. They also had the playground. There's a playground over at Minor School. It was the ribbon cutting for it, and it's truly a handicap accessible playground. They were able to secure a grant. It was a great grant through Senator Gillespie and Representative Walker in that area, and it's handicap accessible equipment. It's absolutely phenomenal. So if you have a chance to drive by Minor School, please take a look at it. And the last is Timber Ridge, and that's the school for our, it's the grade school for the students with behavioral situations. And the gym is being built, so the kids will have a full-size gym to be able to utilize it in a true football or in a true athletic activity. So that is Nsseo. And that'll move us to EdRed.
Thank you. So no legislative update, but the EdRed kickoff luncheon and meeting is tomorrow at lunchtime at Café La Cave. And the guest speaker is Senator Villavalem, who is an EdRed legislator who's worked closely with our EdRed mandates ad hoc committee and the EdRed executive director in the past few years. So we're looking forward to hearing from him. And I know there was an opportunity to submit questions in advance. So we'll see how that goes. That's tomorrow. And then I will have an update for this board following that lunch.
Okay, thank you. And the next is the Facilities and Building Safety Report. Mr. Bradley.
Thank you. So first of all, I want to say thank you to Lauren, David, John, and Lisa for allowing me to come and visit the facility at Framden and give me such a high-level overview of what we'll be doing to maintaining the life and safety of the school for the students. That was the first time I had that perspective of Framden High School. It used to be me on a basketball field, on a basketball court or a football field beating them, but it was a different perspective, so it was pretty cool.
You say beating them.
So some quick updates. I know they're going to be working on the kitchen for some summer projects to really work on the workflow for some of the employees here as well as the students, which I saw, and it really needs that work done. I also want to say how I appreciate the work that was done with the locker rooms. The locker rooms are really nice, especially some of the locker rooms Tim and I saw growing up. I mean, they're really nice and high-level locker rooms, so you guys should be proud of the work that's been done. We have some work that's going to be done at Schaumburg High School. The marquee is going to be updated according to code for the village. We have some life safety projects happening at Palatine High School with some walls that need to be removed and reinstalled. Conant High School, parking is going to be redesigned for better traffic flow, which Conant has always needed. So hopefully we get it done right this time with Conant. And again, like I alluded to earlier, there's about 1.4 million square feet in our roof space. And within the next 5 years, if that's not addressed, some of these roofs are going to hit the 30-year marker, which we definitely shouldn't have. In the admin building, if you did not see us, getting some work done as we speak. And I'm just really glad to see the work that's being done and what's needed. So that's all I have for now.
All righty, thank you very much. I would like to add just two more things. I did attend the North Cook Division dinner last night, and we had the most phenomenal speaker. Her name is Courtney Orzel, and she's the Associate Director for Professional Development for the Illinois Association of School Administrators. She was passionate, she was energetic, she was welcoming. She was just such energy that this lady had. So if this is someone who is helping develop programs or things to help prepare administrators, I think we're in for some outstanding people coming forward. She was just amazing. She was amazing. The last thing I have in regards to some of the facility reports, I'd like to kind of thank people from some of the emails we received from for District 211, letting us know about a technical glitch that we had with a flyer that went out on the First Generation College Symposium, which was held 9/16. We became aware of it. The district addressed it. They corrected it. But it was something that, you know how technology is, things happen along with it. But we were able to address it and get the proper information out to everyone so people can participate in the First Generation College Symposium. So thank you to our tech staff for getting that corrected as quickly as possible. And thank you to our community members who let us know, because sometimes things happen and we may not be aware of it right away. But thank you for that. That'll lead us to our upcoming events and calendar items. So there's a number of things that took place here. I know I had the opportunity to go to the open house. I went to visit North Campus, and Mr. Rosenblum was there also. We met with Francesca, who is the North Campus program administrator. We took a tour. It was very exciting. The teachers were very glad to be there and looking forward to having the students. Then I had the opportunity to go over to Fremd, where I met with Assistant Principal Linda Serafini, and I was able to visit 8 classes. So the speech, computer, earth science, geometry, art, culinary arts, and physics, and each teacher was just really prepared, and they were exciting to meet with the parents. There was one teacher, I really need to share this because I think this is important. This teacher, he was born in Bosnia, and his family came to America to escape the war there when he was 6 years old. He is a product of District 211. He's in his 8th year of teaching, and according to the parents, because I had an opportunity to talk with them, he truly motivates the students. One of the things that he said to all the parents was he believes in the value of education, and he stated to the parents, education is the equalizer. And I think that is just so true, and especially as we're looking at equity and so on, that education is the equalizer. And I thought that that was just so important, and I was so impressed with them. You know, both of the schools demonstrated an energy for being back in person and learning, and just the outpouring of support for the students. So it was really good to be there. I don't know if Mr. Rosenblum has a few words for the open house that he attended.
I do a couple things. First of all, thanks again, as you had mentioned, to North Academy for hosting us for a visit. It was very enlightening and eye-opening as to how it works. Not only were the teachers, I think, happy to be there, I think they were happy to see the support from the school board, and I know Dr. Small also attended their open house and their open house session. I went from the North Academy to Schaumburg High School, and I have been in Schaumburg High School many, many times because both of my kids are graduates from Schaumburg High School. But I have to say, during the open house, there were parts of Schaumburg High School that I never saw before that I had the opportunity to see during this open house. I saw the media room and was very impressed with the exceptional equipment that we have for our students to teach them web design and user experience and creating presentations and just very, very high-tech internet access and being able to post things onto internet and just do some of the very progressive things that we're able to do with the equipment that we have. I visited the shop. Now, I said, I've been to Schaumburg many times. Neither of my kids were in shop, okay? But that shop is incredible. The equipment that we have there for our students to learn automotive skills is phenomenal, phenomenal. And Sully, who was the instructor of the class I attended, is very, very passionate about what he does and the students he works with. We have great relationships, we already know, as a school district with many employers, be they manufacturing, be they selling, and to partner with them and have that as a resource to not only provide education for our students, but then after education resources for employment and helping us with our career readiness program through there was phenomenal. I attended a couple AP classes. I got to learn about the LIFT program at Schaumburg High School, which is, if you don't know, at Schaumburg, it is an opportunity for incoming students to learn about how to be high school students, right? It's part social studies, not social studies, study hall, part lunch, but it's also very much an introductory class for incoming freshmen, and this year for incoming sophomores. And for those of you who are parents, you know exactly what I'm talking about, that this is a year like no other, where our sophomores are also getting integrated into the high school classroom environment. So it's a wonderful program and has been very well received. And finally, I got to go in the band room. I attended band. Both of my kids were, one of my kids was very involved in choir. So I've been in the choir room many, many times, but never in the band room. And so that was a great opportunity to interact with the band parents, and the band booster president was there, and to be able to see that. But my favorite part about all these opportunities is the interaction that parents have with their students' teachers, right? And because it doesn't happen very often unless it's needed, right? A parent doesn't come to school just to meet the teacher. A parent usually comes to school because they need to meet the teacher, right? So it was a great opportunity for a round robin, quick as it was, very quick. That evening, the 2 hours went so fast, but it was still very much a great opportunity for parents to meet the educators and to see that firsthand. And those relationships are so critically important to the parents as well as the students. So it was fun sitting in class and hearing the teacher say, "Oh, your son is so-and-so, or your daughter so-and-so," and then they're able to talk about that and have that firsthand interaction. So thank you to those at Schaumburg that hosted me, but also just to all of our teachers for all that you do and supporting that extra long day.
Thank you. And I'm not certain if I missed someone, if there another board member that had attended? Okay. All right. With that, we will be going back into closed session, and the recommended action is that the board enter closed session to discuss minutes of meetings lawfully closed under the Open Meetings Act, appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, matter pertaining to an individual student, and collective negotiation matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Mr. Kramer?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye. Okay, so the recommended action is that the Board of Education return to open session. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
May I have a roll call, please? Right?
Well,
Okay.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Mr. Kramer?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Mr. Rosenblum, aye. Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye. The next item is the appointment, employment, and our retirement request, excuse me. And the recommended action is that the Board of Education accepts the retirement requests of William Chapp, effective May 2024, consistent with the master contract of the District 211 United Support staff. Peter Dudick, effective May 2023, according to the master contract of the District 211 United Support staff. Grace Nukula, effective December 2022, according to the master contract of the District 211 United Support staff. Cynthia Rogers, effective June 2023, consistent with the master contract of the District 211 United Support staff. And Jack Shamrowski, effective May 2023, according to the master contract of the District 211 support staff. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Rosenblum, aye. Mr. Bradley?
Aye.
Mr. McGowan?
Aye.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kramer?
Aye.
Mrs. Klimkowitz?
Aye. And if there's no other business to come before the board, then the board president declares this meeting of the Board of Education adjourned at 10:33 p.m.